Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And as always, a special thank you to every single one of you who has become a subscriber on Substack, Patreon, YouTube, or who has otherwise supported my work. I appreciate every single one of you. The Iran nuclear issue is now back in the global spotlight. After years of fragile diplomacy, suspended agreements, and fluctuating pressure, the so-called snapback mechanism has been triggered. And with it, a full set of UN and EU sanctions have returned, targeting Iran's economy, trade, banking, transport, and everything in between. Are these sanctions legal? That is the first question. Well, doubtful, but first let's walk through the background and then discuss what this means for Iran, for its people, and for geopolitics in general. Back in 2015, a historic agreement was reached. It was called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. The deal involved Iran and 6 countries: China, France, Russia, the UK, the US, and Germany, commonly known as the P5+1. The goal was very simple: to limit Iran's peaceful nuclear program, which Iran always made it very clear that it had no intention whatsoever to develop nuclear weapons, but because its direct adversary in the region, Israel, is calling the shots, the West cannot let a good conflict go to waste. So in exchange, once that agreement was signed in 2015, the West agreed to lift a broad set of sanctions that had crippled Iran's economy for years. The UN Security Council adopted Resolution 2031, endorsing the deal and laying out a timeline to roll back financial and economic restrictions on Iran. But the agreement was always very, very fragile, and in 2018, things took a sharp turn. The United States, under President Trump, his first presidency, unilaterally, this was very important, the United States unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA deal, despite Iran's full compliance with the agreement's terms. Iran was in full compliance, and it was actually evidenced by an independent report that was issued at the time by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Despite Iran's compliance and its willingness to move forward with the JCPOA at the time, Washington reimposed harsh sanctions, extreme sanctions on Iran, cutting off Iran from the global financial system and oil markets. Now in 2025, the final blow may have been delivered not by the United States, but by its European allies. On August the 28th, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, the so-called EU3, invoked the snapback mechanism outlined by the JCPOA. This move was actually based on their assessment that Iran was supposedly in significant non-compliance according to the terms of the agreement, according to its nuclear commitments. Shortly before new snapback sanctions were activated, the United States presented Iran with an impossible ultimatum. Steve Witkoff's offers are said to have been made directly to Iran and entailed no sanctions relief whatsoever apart from delaying snapback. Trump's team is said to have demanded that Iran must deliver all of its enriched uranium to the United States just to be granted a delay in snapback. So not full relief from the sanctions, just a delay in snapback. So you see the difference here. It was a farce, and Iran did not catch the bait. After the United States withdrawal in 2018, by the way, Iran continued to uphold the agreement for over a year. Why did it do that? Well, because it hoped that Europe would step up and deliver the promised economic benefits to Iran. But Europe failed to do so. It didn't want to. It wasn't interested. Trade mechanism designed to bypass US sanctions like Instax never really gained real traction, and in the end, Europe not only failed to salvage the deal, but has now actively participated in reimposing the same pressure tactics that the agreement sought to eliminate. The snapback process is very unique, by the way. It allows any party to the agreement to trigger the automatic reimposition of UN sanctions if they believe another party is not upholding its end. Crucially, this process cannot be blocked by a UN Security Council veto. Otherwise, of course, Russia and China likely would have vetoed it in the UN. That means even if Russia or China oppose it, the sanctions still go into effect. And that's exactly what happened. With no new Security Council resolution passed to block the move, the snapback process completed on September the 17th. Now, a week later, the EU has followed suit. It reinstated a sweeping list of restrictive measures that were lifted under the 2015 agreement that we just discussed. These sanctions actually target multiple sectors. Let's take a quick look so that you understand just how broad-based they are. In trade, they ban the export of arms to Iran, prohibit the transfer of dual-use goods that could support nuclear or ballistic missile programs, and hold imports of Iranian oil, gas, petrochemicals, and related services. Sales of energy sector equipment, precious metals like gold and diamonds, and certain naval and software technologies are also banned. In the financial sector, the EU is once again freezing the assets of the Central Bank of Iran and major Iranian commercial banks. In transport, Iranian cargo aircraft are barred from EU airports, and European companies are prohibited from maintaining or servicing Iranian cargo planes and vessels. There are also individual sanctions too, including travel bans and asset freezes for people and entities that are linked to Iran's peaceful nuclear proliferation activities. What does this mean? Well, this is a major escalation, to say the least, effectively restoring the full weight of the international sanctions regime that existed prior to 2015. It is illegal, and as I mentioned before, here on my channel as well as on my Substack, economic sanctions target the most vulnerable groups of a country's population who are denied medical necessities and basic products to support their well-being. And no, if you think that is what it's called collateral damage, that is not the case. Targeting the most vulnerable groups of a population is the goal. And there is an entire video with research that supports that figure here on my channel. You're welcome to watch that video next. I will link it for you in the description below. So how is Iran responding to the snapback? President Masoud Pezeshkian has been defined. He stated that accepting Washington's current proposal would have only invited more pressure down the road. Iran, he said, would rather endure sanctions than surrender to a cycle of endless demands and effectively brutal sanctions and coercion. Pezeshkian also emphasized Iran's resilience. He believes that the country can weather the economic storm through closer ties with alternative global alliances like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. He framed Iran's response as a matter of national pride and independence. But this situation goes deeper than just sanctions or nuclear inspections. It exposes the fractures within the international community and the erosion of trust among the original parties to the nuclear deal. The legal and political consequences of this move are quite significant. For one, the legitimacy of the snapback is being questioned, especially by Iran, Russia, and China. While the mechanism may be technically valid under the old JCPOA, critics argue that it undermines the spirit of diplomacy and multilateralism. And for Russia and China, the choice now is very complicated. Do they comply with the reimposed sanctions and risk alienating a strategic partner, or do they reject the sanctions regime and face potential secondary sanctions or diplomatic fallout with the West? What do they do? Meanwhile, the United States, alongside allies like Israel, may now use the reimposed sanctions, may now use the snapback as justification for even more pressure on Iran, or possibly even military action against Iran's peaceful nuclear infrastructure. And that's what makes the snapback more than just a legal technicality, I would say. It could mark the beginning of a new and more dangerous phase in the Iran-West confrontation. At this stage, the future of the JCPOA looks all but dead. It is quite clear the trust is completely gone. The diplomacy didn't quite lead anywhere. The framework is broken, and the likelihood of a diplomatic revival appears to be very, very slim. So where does this leave us? Iran is now further isolated economically, but politically it is aligned with rising non-Western powers, with the global South, with the global majority. The West has returned to a pressure campaign that has historically failed miserably to achieve lasting results. As always, it is the people of Iran who will bear the brunt of the sanctions as the West defaults to what it knows best: economic coercion and ultimatums. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for joining me. I hope that you consider supporting my work. Become a subscriber here on YouTube, Substack, and Patreon. I would love to see you on my alternative social media platforms. You will find them linked in the description below. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Take care.